Hey guys, what's up? It's Joe Raiti from Raiti's Rides. I'm here at a special filming spot location because guess what? We have something all new from Mercedes Benz. It's this vehicle right here. This is a 2025 Mercedes Benz. Yes, it's a G-Wagen, but this is a G580 with EQ technology. But before we get into this, Sun Yellow, that's the name of this manufacturer custom color, Sun Yellow G-Wagen. Let's talk about what's going on here. Kind of crazy to think the G-Wagen, the original G-Wagen, goes back to 1979. And yes, fast forward to the modern era, you could still get a G-Wagen actually several different ways. They did do a redesign not too long ago, and when I say a redesign, they really had a tough job because they had to keep that overall familiar shape of this G-Wagen that makes it so popular. Now, with this G580, they're kind of opening up the spectrum of potential buyers. This is a fully electric G-Wagen. So you still have your G550 and the very powerful AMG G63 with that twin turbocharged V8. This goes a little bit different route, but as you can see, you're still getting the familiar G-Wagen shape. So what I want to find out is, which way do you go with your G-Wagen? Should you just go all in and get an AMG G63? Or should you try something a little bit different with this G580? Let's go ahead, let's dive into ours and find out. Right off the bat, that bumblebee color stings you really sharp and captures your attention with the black roof and the rest in that, like I said, custom color. One of 20,000 colors you could choose from when you go with that manufacturer build process. But Sun Yellow definitely, like I said, pops in the Florida sun and gets your attention. Now at the front of the business, you're gonna still see the familiar look of the G-Wagen. So we have our turn signals mounted up top with that slightly smoked housing, LED turn signals. Working your way down, we have the traditional round headlight design. That's a LED daytime running lamp and LED headlights. You'll notice that the fender flares and bumpers are actually painted metallic black. They're not gloss black. They're metallic black painted, got a nice kind of dropping of metal flake in there to let it sparkle. And then as we continue our way down, you do have these functional corner air intakes, obviously because we need to bring some cool air for the aerodynamics, but yet you still have that very squared off bumper area because, like I said, it was a balance. Familiar look, but then you also have to worry about drag. Now, as we come across the front grille area, love that massive Flava Flav sized blacked out Mercedes badge. You'll notice the top portion, this is actually a grille because you have functionality behind it to help bring air to cool that lithium ion battery pack. And then working our way down, more functionality even in the center area here, like the flat black egg crate grille. And then you do get a forward facing camera, kind of in a dangerous spot if you ask me. I feel like you're really asking for trouble having the camera mounted that low and protruding that far outward. But like I said, when it comes to the familiar look, this G580 does pull off that G-Wagen look, and just a little bit of sort of like this dark aluminum trim that goes around the perimeter. I like the way they did that to really kind of make this look even more so like a traditional grille. Now underneath this beast, besides the battery pack, they say that this can go rock crawling. So what they did was they added a 127-pound composite with metal Under Armour. So it weighs 127 pounds, protects the whole vehicle underneath from stem to stern. It's held in place with over 50 bolts. How do I know? I slid myself underneath and I counted each one. Another thing is that because this doesn't have an internal combustion engine, you could actually go through deeper water. So this thing will go through 33.5 inches of water. That's actually 5.9 inches of water deeper than the internal combustion version of this G-Wagen. And what the Mercedes engineers say, it could even go deeper than that. The only thing holding it back is the air inlet for the air conditioning system. Other than that, it says you're watertight, you could go way deep in this thing. Now, as we take the elevator up, you got your traditional hood. Love that black and silver Mercedes Benz logo. You got some of that egg crate venting on the hood. But like I said, from this angle, it looks like your regular internal combustion engine G-Wagen. Now, when we come around the bend, what are we working with? Wheel and tire setup. So what you're gonna find are these 20-inch wheels, nice kind of split spoke design all the way around with the AMG embossed name. And then you're gonna have 2-piece rotors and nice large calipers with the Mercedes Benz logo in there. 20-inch wheel. Tires are gonna be 275 on the width, 50 series sidewall at all 4 corners. And then I'm gonna have Lori kind of swing in and show off the suspension. You got your upper control arm, your shock absorber with the adaptive suspension. The way that this thing is powered, believe it or not, is not with 1 electric motor, not even with 2 electric motors, not even with 3 electric motors. It uses 4 electric motors, 1 motor per corner. And what's fascinating is that the motors use a oil lubrication to keep the temps down. And what I find even more interesting is that the Mercedes engineers say this oil never needs to be changed. Kind of interesting how they took that route with 4 individual motors. Now, coming down the side, love the way you still got that side molding, just like your standard G-Wagen. A little bit of an EQ badge here because technically this is a G580, and like I said at the start, with EQ technology. What's funny is whether this is electrified or not, I got the same zonk. These mirrors have got to go. They're basically the same side mirror off an E-Class sedan. I want my square or rectangle shaped mirrors. They are more aerodynamically superior, but they just don't, they look out of place on this Bumblebee. Now, you do have 360-degree cameras, and they are power folding mirrors. And I think it was smart on this particular one to have the black roof. It cuts down the sun yellow just enough, kind of adds even more with the whole Bumblebee vibe. You have your fixed running boards, and of course, more of that side molding goes all the way down the side. Obviously, I just locked it. There's proof that the mirrors are electric on the movement. There they go, swinging back out. And just like your regular G-Wagons going all the way back to 1979, this thing sounds like a vault. Nice, solid. I love that sound. It's just something so pleasurable. I actually took about 20 minutes before we filmed, and I was just opening and closing doors on this thing because it just feels good. Now, here's one thing that's interesting is that you do have a little bit of a air curtain built into the fender flare to help flow some of that air through to cut down on drag. Still got your big basic boxy look, but as you can see, nowhere to put any kind of dinosaur juice. This is where you're gonna charge. Love the way that they kept the look. They could have rounded it off and all that, but they didn't. You even have the venting on the rear pillar here. You have your rain guard all the way around. And then at the tail end of the business, the only thing that really separates it is there's no exhaust outlets. You do have your nice yellow, sun yellow with the metallic black spare carrier. We got our G580 badge. I like the way that's in black. And then as we work our way down to ground level, just super smooth. You do have a tow recovery hook. If you're gonna have a vehicle that's off-road capable, you gotta have tow recovery hooks, and this thing does have it, but you can see just how clear it is underneath that thing because it is full electric. But why don't we go ahead, we talked about the exterior, let's see if we could pop the hood and if there's anything underneath it. All right, guys, we have our G-Wagen hood up. You do have prop rods. Underneath the hood, there isn't a frunk, and there's nothing to see. They just have this massive cover because they do have other engineering bits underneath it for the cooling of the lithium-ion battery pack, for the oiling of those 4 electric motors. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty, shall we? Combined horsepower is 579 horsepower, 859 pound-feet of torque. It does have a 116 kilowatt battery pack, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, quarter mile in 12.5 seconds at 109 miles an hour. Top speed is limited to 112 miles an hour. Range, you're looking at 239 EPA regulated miles. The vehicle weighs 6,908 pounds, so definitely not a lightweight. On a DC fast charger, you will charge from 10% to 90% in 46 minutes. And those that are living large and in charge, if you have a big, huge motorhome and you want to flat tow this thing, it will actually be able to be flat towed behind your motorhome without any damage to anything with the motors or any of the drivetrain at all 4 corners. And at the end of the day, like I said, you have the battery pack, which is also a stressed member underneath the belly of this beast. But very interesting to see the direction that Mercedes Benz took with this electrified G-Wagen. It's got some pretty stout numbers, but can it outdo the mighty G63? Why don't we turn it on and see it zoom? All right, guys, we're in it to win it inside this 2025 Mercedes Benz G580. I know you're saying to yourself, well, Joe, I've always wanted a G-Wagen. I've kind of always leaned towards the G63, but I'm willing to give this G580 a go at. How much is it? MSRP, the way that this one is optioned, is $182,000. That seems to be the going rate for a lot of different G-Wagons, depending on how you spec them. But let's see what you get when you go with the G580. Since it is electrified, you know how we do it. To the door panels, you're still gonna get that same great style, all of the leather, the white contrast stitching, the diamond stitching. Up top, you have your traditional seat controls with 3-way memory settings. Remember, Mercedes-Benz was one of the first companies to put the seat controls on the door panel. Heated seats, ventilated seats, and massage seats for both front seat passengers. You do have the premium audio sound system with those absolutely gorgeous speaker grille covers. Door handle looks like a German belt buckle right there in the middle. Another nice touch. And that's real open pore wood, nicely dark stained. Door pocket is a good enough size for 2 bratwursts and of course a big old bottle of root beer. Now going from the door panel to the dash, your passenger has a nice leather covered oh crap handle with the manufacturer badge here. That beautiful dark wood stain, leather all over the dash. And even the way they did this silver aluminum trim looks spectacular. Of course, you have full ambient lighting in here. Down on the sides, even, they bring all the great fine stitching and some ambient lighting to the lower side. Come on in. We got the updated infotainment system. Love the way there's an actual hood with the stitching and the leather. Wood trim on the interior. If you're rubbing your wood after a hard day at work, make sure you don't get splinters. You shouldn't get splinters with this nicely done wood in here. 12.3-inch infotainment system. Obviously, you've seen this on many different vehicles. from Mercedes Benz, of course, and of course, with this being an EQ spec, you have your charging, the percentage of the battery, you can see what your range is, you can make adjustments on the fly if you need to cut back. So if you make these changes it's suggesting, you could get an extra 31 miles worth of range. So kind of cool the way that they have suggestions like that. Same great swipe features. We go into comfort. This is where you're going to view all your massage settings. You have your ambient lighting, Roy G. Biv all day long, and then energizing comfort, which is great as well. And then we're right back where we started. When it comes to G and the G-Wagen, you got to have your off-road pages. You can see satellite position in case you have your satellite phone and your chopper's going to come pick you up, or maybe the A-Team, B.A. Baracus, I pity the fool. Love the way you have tire temperature, tire pressure, the suspension, all those goodies on both sides. So nice to have that technology. I'm going to throw it into reverse. Backup camera's clear as day. Trajectory, you got your 360 cam. Obviously this is a full touch screen because I'm touching the screen and it's doing things. And then of course you could go into your settings and all those other things. But nice to have it so usable. There's even something called kinesthesis. And what that does is when you turn it on, or kinesthetics, when you turn it on, it repositions the seat every few minutes so that you don't get a sore spot on your body, whether it's on the lower portion of the seat or the back of the seat. It just moves it just a little bit to reposition. That's something that I have not seen even on a Rolls Royce Spectre that we drove here on Raiti's Rides not too long ago. Working our way down, you do have a start-stop button. They took away, obviously, the auto start-stop feature because there's no engine underneath the hood. Same great AC vents. What you have when it comes to off-road controls is your low range, and then you have the ability to have what would be like a trail turn assist when you're off-roading. And I'm sure many people are going to be off-roading in their G580s. Now you do have your dual climate control with the real switchgear. More of that nice wood finish. Open sesame, Alakazam. Nice. 2 cup holders that are ventilated and heated. I don't know if Lori could pick up the ambient lighting. You see that's blue because we're chilling. And then when you want to go warm, it turns red. Just the little touches. Wireless charging, 2 USB-Cs and a 12-volt, peekaboo, ICU. Close that up, surrounded by wood, no gloss black. Obviously you could use this. If you don't want to touch the screen, you could use this trackpad. It's actually very, very intuitive, and it's got a nice haptic kickback. You could go into your different modes. Dynamic control, look at this. Look at the modes we have, trail, rock, all those goodies. Or do individual, and you can set it up exactly the way that you want it. We're gonna leave it in sport. I like sport. Silver trim, bombs away! You have some felt lining, a USB-C, and I would say you could probably fit in there 4 Rubik's Cubes. That actually in Germany is one of the greatest pastimes, is the Rubik's Cube, playing with a Rubik's Cube. Believe it or not, here in the United States in the 1920s, the greatest pastime was puzzles, putting together puzzles. Interesting. Seats, the leather, full electric, the stitching, God, it feels good. All the way down the bolstering, the diamond pleated stitching. No seat controls on the seats because that allows for a wider seat cushion. More cushion for the pushing, as I say. And then you're surrounded up top with Alcantara. It's not that neighbor down the street that has that really cool car. Alcantara is the name of the company that makes this microfiber suede material. And then you have a standard size sunroof. I've always zonked at it. I think at this price point we need a panoramic. But why don't you come over here? We're not done yet. Come over here to the business end. I want to show you behind the wheel of this G-Wagon. All right, guys, business time behind the wheel. You do have 3 memory seat settings for the driver's seat. I love how this has earned the official badge from Mercedes Benz. And speaking of Mercedes Benz, you have this beautiful aluminum sill plate with the name, illuminates LED at night. Pedal box, nice aluminum brake pedal, throttle, but I still want an aluminum dead pedal. Carpet isn't gonna cut it. You do have your AMG branded Floor mats, that's gonna be an extra 5 horsepower. Seats are superb. I'm 6 feet tall, just swimming in space, and there's speakers everywhere. I almost feel like there's a speaker right up my rear end. I mean, that's the kind of sound feel you're gonna get in this thing. And then the steering wheel. Love the leather, nice thickness. You got stitching on the leather horn button. Some gloss black, but it really shouldn't bother you too much because you'll probably have your AMG polishing cloth. There are paddles to go on the back of the wheel, but they're not for gears. It's actually to increase or decrease your regen braking. You do have an electric tilting and telescoping wheel, and that's also, you turn that to turn on your heated steering wheel, and then you have that 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster. Love the way that when you go into different settings, it will allow you to basically have all that information supplied in the center for you. So you see how I could change it up? Look at this, watch, I go to sport, feeling kind of sporty. Weird, look at that dash. I don't know if I like that. We gotta change that. So we'll go home. Let's go to understated. That's something I've never been called, is understated. I think I wanna go back. This is where I wanna stay, classic. Whew. But other than that, nice to have all that different information displayed, super clear, and I like the way there's a hood to give it some shade. But why don't you go ahead, why don't you follow me? Where am I going? Not going home yet. We're going in the back seat and see how your passengers are gonna like this G-Wagon. All right, guys, back seat time. Of course, with those large door openings, nice to have all that space. I wanna just show you, here's your heated seat buttons. You got 3 stages of heated seats. No ventilated seats for $182,000. That's a major zonk. Back of the seat though, you do have the leather. Love the way they got AC vents actually in the frame. And then you have a nice pocket here. This is where you could put, like, you know, your issues of Forbes magazine, maybe Newsweek. I'd be putting some car magazines back there because I've already had enough of the news. Slide on in. We got our AC vents, AC controls. Down below, you got 2 USB-Cs and a 12 volt. I'm surprised there's no home power source in here. That's another zonk. But sitting back here feels good. Do the seats slide? Nope. Do they recline? They're already reclined. That's, yeah, this is it. This is what you get. What you see is what you get. And then you pull this down. Man, it's like they took a brick and wrapped it in leather because it's not soft at all. But you do have 2 cup holders. And the same great material, which is nice. The same leather. It smells absolutely. You know what it smells like in here? I feel like I'm in a country western store that sells boots and belts and saddles and stirrups and all that kind of stuff made out of leather. Because that's what it smells like in here. Why don't we go ahead? Let's get into the cargo area because I want to see just how many 10-gallon cowboy hats I could put in this Twinkie colored G-Wagon. All right, guys, cargo area time. That traditional, just like all 4 doors, you open up the rear. Just make sure you're not parallel parked with somebody behind you, and you're gonna be greeted to quite a usable amount of space. Now, the nice thing is that even with this being electrified, you're still getting a ton of room there. 37 cubic feet of space with the seats up. Fold the seats down, it's a 60-40 split. That's gonna give you 70 cubic feet of space. One of the things I've always loved about G-Wagon is just how tall it is. So if you have some of those taller items, you'll be able to get it back here, no problem. You also have, thank God, a 12 volt. I'm surprised there's no home power source. That's a zonk. No home power source is a zonk, but you do have your Twinkie cargo net. You don't want your Twinkies sliding around in this big Twinkie, so you could put them in the cargo net. But why don't we go ahead, enough chit chat. Oh, almost forgot. Even on the inside, look at the leather, the stitching, and even the wood on the handle on the interior. Those are the touches you get when you go Mercedes Benz. Lock it up like a safe. If you're ready, I'm ready. Why don't you hop in shotgun and let's go on throttle in this G580. All right, guys, we're behind the wheel of this new G580. And right away, I mean, it has the feel of an internal combustion G-Wagon. Same view out the windshield, which is nice. Love the way they updated the interior with the 2 12.3-inch screens. And then you have the easy access switch gear right on the center console. You could go through your different modes. And something that the G-Wagen has always done well is you always have such a great view of the road in front of you. You actually have your turn signal lights as your kind of corner markers to let you know where those front fenders are, but really has a natural feel going down the road. Now, there is some simulated sound being pumped through the premium sound system, but the good news is that it actually kind of works well to create an environment where you feel like there's an internal combustion engine underneath the hood. It's nothing too obnoxious. It's not trying too hard to be something that it's not. It works well, like with the amount of percentage of throttle you give, it gives that same amount of sound. So very nice to have that, because usually I'm not the biggest fan. Now, of course, like I showed you earlier, all the accessibility through the infotainment system. We can go to those off-road pages where it pulls up your instrumentation there, and then you could scroll through different info. It's actually showing you the percentage of power going to all four wheels, because remember, we have the 4 separate motors in this vehicle. Seats are superb. They have the active bolstering, so when you go into a turn, it actually increases side bolstering for you to help hold you in place. And it's a real nice natural seating position you can create in here. But of course, that instant torque from the electric motors, over 800 pound-feet of torque, is quite superb in this vehicle. But crazy to think that it weighs almost 7,000 pounds. Getting to all of the great storage, you got your heated and chilled cup holders. Even the room for the backseat passengers, I think they're gonna enjoy sitting back there in your sun yellow G-Wagen. All right, guys, we're gonna go over to the Raiti's Rides little test track here. I wanna show you how hard this G-Wagen accelerates and also the handling dynamics behind it. I think you're gonna be quite surprised, especially because of the size of the vehicle. But remember, because it is battery operated, it lowers your center of gravity. But getting up to speed is not an issue. I do have it in sport mode. You have your adaptive suspension. And right now I have it on high recuperation. That's that regen braking. You could use the paddles to change that very, very easily. But if you're ready, I'm definitely ready. On throttle, here we go. On the brakes, those massive brakes, into this left-hand bend. I mean, look at this. A G-Wagen that could actually do some extra good handling. And you can hear the sound when you're on throttle and your foot is pegged to the floor. That's when the sound increases. Coming to a dead stop, nobody's behind us. I'm gonna brace myself and we're gonna go on throttle. You ready? On throttle, here we go. So instant torque from the 4 motors and just keeps you planted. No slip, all grip. But the handling is actually better, I think, than your regular G-Wagen. Like I said, because of that lower center of gravity. I mean, it's still a top-heavy SUV, but as you can see, there's not as much body roll that you find in other G-Wagons. Yes, you're gonna get some wind noise, but you always get wind noise in a G-Wagen just because of the shape. I think you're hearing it a little bit more, obviously, because there's no engine sound or vibration to counteract that wind noise. But I'm telling you right now, I am blown away just how much this feels like a traditional G-Wagen. And when you see G580, that specifically deals with the electrified version of the G-Wagen. But you can see with the handling, very smooth, good input from the wheel, and then we get back out on the highway. I guess at the end of the day, the thing you gotta ask yourself is, you know, are you willing to make the compromises to have an electrified G-Wagen? Because with this G-Wagen, you have a range of 239 miles. Not a whole lot. But, like I said, it is a very large SUV. But I do like the way it drives. It's very smooth on the highway. Feels good. You could actually go into comfort mode. That's going to adjust the suspension and the sensitivity of the throttle and the steering. And it has the attitude of an old school G-Wagen for sure. But I'm hoping that this has been a good, quick overall review of this new G580. We're gonna get back to where it all started and wrap this one up. So I'll see you in a Mercedes minute. All right, guys, a very, very fascinating and unique experience going on throttle in this G580. Definitely got to thank everybody at Mercedes USA, Mercedes Benz USA, for allowing us access to this press fleet vehicle. Now it's your turn. Let Mercedes Benz know how you feel. Are you keeping your G63? Is that what you want over this G580? Or are you liking what Mercedes Benz did with this electrified G-Wagen? Let me know in the comment section. But if you're new to the channel, you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile. Come back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Raise Rise family. Gotta give it up to LGR. She loves this beast, especially getting behind the wheel and going on throttle. So thank you, Lori, for working as hard as you do, because you are the best. And just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.